Hello, Byrdie here with Redbyrd Designs on getting started on our first virtual paint party today. I am going to step you through creating the Hello Spring porch sign and just paint and visit with you guys and yeah. Some of the things that I say at my regular party, I think apply here. One is, this is a fun paint party, not a fine arts paint party. So if you're new to painting, you can totally do this. It's very easy. We've got an easy background that we're going to apply. We've got, the flowers are super easy. They're just abstract flowers. Essentially circles and sea brush strokes. You've probably heard me talk about them. They're kind of my favorite right now. I'm a little bit obsessed with them, but they're so fun to paint and they look great. So beginners are welcome. We just want to have fun with paint and brush and just get some creative therapy. And so this is a fun art class. Hi, Corey. As you hop on, do say hi so I can see that you've joined. Sometimes Facebook doesn't show me everyone who pops on, so I'd love to say hi to you if you can join us today. The event, in the discussions of the event are all of this, there's lists with all of the supplies that you need. And so if you're not joining us live today, be sure to go to the event and get those. And I might link them after the event in the comments too, so you have easy access to those. Turn some music on, get a snack, get a drink, and just enjoy yourself painting. Like I said, I'll just step you through all of the, I'll step you through the painting process of creating this porch sign. And if you don't have a large piece of wood to create a porch sign, you can easily do this on a canvas. You could do it on just a smaller piece of wood, a scratch, or like a sketch pad. If you just want to practice some of these flowers on a sketch pad, you could do it there. Use any colors that you have, your favorite colors, make it your own. It's very versatile. So I hope you can join us in painting, if not today, another time. This will be saved and, it's recorded and saved on our Facebook page indefinitely. So if you get behind as well, you can always catch up later, or if you have to step away, you can always go back to the video later. Let's see, I think that's it. So I'm going to point you down to the my work surface or my piece of board here, and we're going to go through the supplies that I'm going to use today, and then we will get started painting. So give me just a second. I'll get a little shaky here. So there we go. All right, so here I have a piece of wood. It's a piece of plywood that's 12 inches wide and 48 inches long. That's going to be my canvas today. I have a styrofoam plate, and the reason that the styrofoam plate is important is because we are going to water down our color for the base. So we're going to almost use it as a stain as opposed to a solid color. And so with that water, you don't want to use a paper plate because the paper plate will just start to disintegrate and you'll not get the, it'll soak up the water. If you don't have a styrofoam plate, you can use a paper plate with maybe tin foil or saran wrap over it. Or if you just have a regular plate, do the same with that. Just wrap it with some saran wrap so that you are protecting your plate. So that's why the styrofoam, that's why I have that here. Usually I use paper plates. I'm going to use the chip brush to apply that colored stain. And mine is 1.5 inches. But if you had a 2-inch or something wider, that would work great too. It'd allow you to apply paint more quickly to your surface. And then I have the 2 brushes that I'm going to use for creating my flowers and greenery are just a round brush. So I've just got the rounded tip on top. If you had something a little different shaped, that would work as well. And I think this is a size 10 and a size 6. So something a little bit bigger and then a little smaller for a little more detail work at the end. You want to make sure that you have a cup of water for cleaning your brushes, a rag for getting the water out of your brushes. You don't ever want to paint with water in your brush, except for this first technique. Otherwise, your flowers will start to run, and your paint will run, and you'll start to bleed everywhere. So you want to make sure to get the water out of your brushes. I have all my paint here. If you didn't get a kit, you can get these. This PDF is located on our website in the events discussion as well. And I'll show you how you can use these to apply the words to your porch sign. And then if you got a kit, you'll have these wooden cutouts that will paint. You also want to have a pencil. If you're using the paper, a pair of scissors is helpful, and then a ruler so we can place our words evenly on the wood. So I think that's it. I also have a blow dryer just to help speed up some of the dry time. You don't necessarily need to have a blow dryer, but I thought if, to keep this video reasonable, I'm probably gonna blow dry some areas so that we can move on. Okay, so I'm gonna see if I can get you on my iPad here so I can watch for comments. Give me just a second. As you hop on, say hi so I can see who's available or who's here. Make sure my volume's off. All right. Hi, Corey. Said hi to you. Hi, Haley. Okay. So we'll get started. The first step that we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to create a stained look with acrylics. So this is really fun if you want to still see that wood background, but don't want to use like a Minwax oil stain, which can be pretty stinky. It takes a long time to dry, and they do have quite a few colors that you can use, but if you're looking for a certain color, this is a great alternative to that because you can literally use this method to stain wood any color you want. Let's see. Hi, Katie. I'm glad you got to join too. Yay. Okay, so I'm going to take just a small amount of paint. I'm going to come down here just a little bit so you can see this. Out of this little paint pot here that some of you are probably using if you got a kit. So I'm going to just scoop out about half of that. So I've got about that much paint in there. And then my water jar here is fresh water, or clean water, so I'm going to actually use that to water down the paint. I'm just going to dip my brush in there and then not rinse any of it off, and then add some water to my plate and mix that in. I'm going to do that a couple times because I want a lot of water there. So you're going to really water that paint down. It's literally going to drip off your brush like that. So once you've got enough, a lot of water on your plate and you've mixed it in with some of that paint, we're just going to quickly apply that to the piece of wood. So I'm going to just go across this way. And it's also a good idea to have a piece of, or something to protect your table from splatter, because it is really watered down. You'll splatter on the side there. So we're just going to go across, grab some more water, and we're just going to brush that into the wood. Now the more water you have, the less paint, the more wood will show through. So I'm going to add just a little bit more water because it's a little darker than what I want it to be. I want it to look like a stain. I want to see that wood grain come through. So I'm just going to keep adding water. It's always best to stain with a, to stain lightly first, because you can always go back and add more color later, but it's a little bit difficult to remove color after the fact. You kind of have to sand it down and almost start over if you've got too much. It's a little bit dark up here at the top on mine, but I'm okay with that because I know I'm going to add flowers to the top. So I'm just trying to push some of that color down with my brush. There we go. So we're just going to work in small sections here, and you don't need to spend a lot of time. Just make sure to get that color, that watered down paint into all the grooves. So I'm going to just lift this up so you can see it here. You can see how you can see that wood grain come through. So it's just watered down acrylic, which is super awesome to create that stain effect. All right. So I'm going to add a little bit more paint to my plate. And I'm going to go back and get some more water. You can also have a separate cup for adding water and just pour it right onto your plate too. So again, we want it to be really watered down. We want that paint to just drip right off our brush. I'm not going to do the sides of my porch sign simply because I'm probably going to paint those with a full acrylic paint instead of doing the stain technique. You could do it either way, but depending, I might color the stains or the edges with one of my colors. I'm thinking the green or even one of the flower colors would be pretty, something different. A little more water here. Did I lose you guys? I got a call come in. Sorry about that. I think we're okay. Did a little pause. Yeah, okay. We're still going, good. looks like we just need a little more paint. Hi Kelly, glad you could join us. Fun. Okay, more paint, more water. I'm actually going to get a little more water. And you do want to move fast on this process, just so that you can move that water and paint around a little bit easier. Because it is wood, that water is going to soak up super fast. So if you take too long, you're not going to be able to push it around like you want and blend it in, simply because that wood just going to soak it up. So Corey, are you and Grandma painting with me today or just watching? Okay, I got just a little bit more I need to do at the very bottom. So I'm going to scoop just a little bit of paint out. Add water. I'm just going back and looking at my piece of wood and seeing how this is drying and seeing where maybe a little more color needs to be applied. Remember, we're going to add flowers all the way around the edges, pretty much. So if there are some areas down at the bottom that isn't quite right, we're going to be covering that anyways. So you don't need to worry about that. So I'm looking at this, it looks okay. I got a little light spot right there. And then if you wanted to use this method on the edges of your board, you would do that now. I'm not gonna do that at this time, because I think for this one I'm going to paint the edges maybe a dark green or even a color of the flowers, depending on what I have left in my bucket or in my little pots, because I think that will add a cool contrast to the edges of the porch sign. Oh, Katie, that's okay. Well, at least you get to do it later. I'm glad you're outside enjoying the sunshine. I sent my husband off with the boys to get them out of the house while I do this. So otherwise there'd be stomping and wrestling and all sorts of noise around. Hi, Auntie. Hi, Janae. How are you guys today? Okay. So at this point, this is going to be pretty wet because we did use a lot of water to put that color down. And I am going to take just a couple minutes and blow dry this real fast so that we can start adding flowers. So it's going to get just a little bit loud here. And while I'm doing this, let let me know what you guys did this weekend. You know, how did you enjoy the nice weather? Oh. When you're doing your porch sign, you want to make sure that your wood is semi-dry. It doesn't have to be completely dry, but this could be a good stopping point where you get this part done and then come back to it at another time if you're short for time. But so mine's pretty dry. It's still a little damp, and that's okay. We can continue on with the flowers next. Oh, let's see. Hi, Stacy. As much time outside as possible. Yes, when it gets to be nice weather like this, outside. Another thing that you can do while you're waiting for this to dry is paint your Hello Spring words. You can start getting a coat of white on those, or any color that you want. I used white in my sign, but you can use any color. You do not have to paint. If you get the wood letters from me, you don't have to paint the edges of them. You can, but I think it helps with giving it a contrast for dimension on the sign. Let me just grab mine real quick and show you. Oh, I did paint mine. I forgot. So I'm going to bring this up close. So I did paint mine white on the edge, but you don't have to. I've done it both ways, where you leave them black and it looks great, or you can paint the edges white too. So while you're waiting for your fake acrylic stain to paint or to dry, you could be painting those. Okay, so I'm done with this brush now. I'm just going to set it aside, and I'm going to move to my medium round brush, or my large round brush. Again, this is, I think, a size 10. A size 12 would work. If you had like a flat tip brush that looks like that would work as well. It's called a filbert. A larger brush that you can put paint down fairly quickly will work in this case. Okay, so let's see, what color flowers do we want to start with? I'll start with my bright pink flowers. And I'm just going to dump some paint on my plate. You can, if you get the pots, you can paint right out of the pots if you want, but I like to mix my colors as I go, so I'm gonna just actually fill my plate with some paint. Well, I'll wait till I'm done with my pink. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my pink flowers, and you can make your flowers as big or as small as you want. You can do a bunch of smaller flowers, or you can do, you know, bigger ones, medium size. In this sign back here, I did my flowers probably about as big as maybe a small cup. And I don't want to encourage you to use a cup to trace the circles though. Because these are flowers and they're abstract flowers, we don't want to have that same shape over and over again. We want them to be just a natural messy circle. Maybe some are a little more flat than others, and that's okay because, well, flowers are all different. They're not exact circles in real life anyway. So don't worry about drawing a perfect circle or tracing something. Just put paint on your brush and get that shape on your board. So I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to just draw a circle really fast, and I'm just going to brush in and fill that in there. And we're going to be adding multiple layers to this. I'm going to bring this up to you just so you can see real quick. So that's about the size, and it's not perfect. And you can even see some of the blue through that. You don't have to lay down a lot of paint on this base coat. This is really just a base coat. So we are going to add about 3 more layers onto this. So keep it just a light circle. You'll probably see some of the wood through, and that's okay. That way it can dry faster and we can keep adding layers, because if we lay too much paint down at this stage, it's going to take forever to dry. And then when we go to add our layers on top of it, it will it won't blend right, or it might pick up paint away from the wood, and and then you're going to end up with some goopiness going on. Okay, so we're going to just add flowers around randomly. I'm going to make some of them actually go off of the wood, so they're partially on and partially off. I'll do a grouping of 3 here. So there's 3 different sizes there. Put a large one right here. And just adding circles. Nice light coat. Get a little more paint. really pretty with just all one color flower as well, but maybe different shades of pink or all purple and different shades of that. There's so many different ways that you could create these flowers and they would look amazing. One more up here. There we go. I think you can see that. I'm going to just bring it down just a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to wash my brush. Just a couple swishes in the water, and then I'm going to use my rag to squeeze out that excess water and any excess color that still might be in there. And then I'm going to use the purple next. And we will add flowers. Again, just randomly place them. Some areas you can group them. I recommend grouping them in 3 or more just because it's more appealing to the eyes to have odd numbers than it is to have even numbers. So if you're going to group some light colored flowers, like in this area I did 3, that area I did 1, 3. And where I have, I guess I did 2 there, but I'm going to group some more flowers there. So just keep that in mind as you're painting too, that I'm not sure about the science behind it, but I know that there's appeal with odd numbers as opposed to even numbers when we're grouping things. It just looks better. I'll do just a little half one down there. Do one big purple. I like doing a little bit larger flowers down at the bottom because I feel like that's where the main base of my, I guess, garden is, and then I kind of, as they go up, they get just a little bit smaller, just like if it was a vine with flowers on it, maybe. I am not a gardener, and so I have no really proof if that's how that works. And if you're putting flowers next to each other and they accidentally mix colors, that's okay. Again, this is just the base coat. I'm going to make this one up here just a little bit bigger. And a purple here. Okay. So I'm going to just, let's see, I wonder if I can zoom in with my camera. Oh, I can. Check that out. Except it just kind of zooms into the center. But there you can kind of see the sizes, and on this big work surface, maybe that's not the best. I'll zoom in when we do some detail on the flowers. That will help there. Okay, so then next I'm going to do that coral color, orangey coral. Wash my brush. some of this out. And we'll add that color. Now of all of the colors, orange and yellow are two of the paint colors that are the hardest to work with, it seems, because they're so transparent that it takes quite a few coats to get them so that you don't see what's behind there. So if you're painting along, I'd love to hear if you're painting on something other than a piece of wood. If you're painting on a canvas, you could totally just do the solid background, any color you want, whether that be that teal color or not. If you're doing canvas, you probably don't want to water down the paint. Just paint that solid color there, or mix two colors and get two different, like a shaded background. So as you're placing flowers, it's okay if some of your flowers have gaps between them. You can see down at the bottom here that some of my flowers I didn't connect, or they're not overlapping, but we're going to come back and fill that with greenery at the end. So it will give it that finished look, that finished full look of a bouquet or a vine that's growing up a house or something. Okay. I've painted this porch sign probably, let's see, 2, 4, 6 times, and every time my flowers are different. Which is awesome. So when you're placing your flowers, don't try and put them exactly where I did. Just let your mind put them wherever you want. Make them random, and it's gonna look great. Okay, so I've got my orange flowers in. And now I'm going to go back and add some accent colors, my second layer to my flowers. So I'm going to zoom you in actually on this one. Let me get some paint on my palette. I'm going to use this light pink color to put accents in my pink and my purple flowers. I'll get a little bit, and I'm going to use just the same larger brush here, and I'm going to zoom in for a couple of the flowers so you can see how that looks. Okay, I'm going to start with, where am I? Right here. Okay, so I'll start with my pink flowers, and I'm just going to load my brush up with that light pink, and I'm going to start in the center, and I'm going to use a brush stroke that's in the shape of a C, a smiley face, or a parentheses, and I'm going to not randomly, but offset those and build my way out from the center of the flower. see that? Oh yeah. Okay, so load it up with some pink. And when you're building your flowers or you're adding this layer to your flowers, don't make the absolute center of your circles the center of the flower every time, because all flowers are not just facing right at you. You know, some of them are going to be turned a little bit, so that center is going to be offset. And so you want to make sure that you're not creating the center in the center of your circle every time. So for like this one here, I'm going to put my center closer to the bottom because I'm going to make this one look like the flower's pointing down. So we'll just start a little bit closer to the bottom of the circle. Again, creating that C shape is what creates those petals. So you can see my center is here as opposed to, you know, further up a little bit. This one I did do in the center, and I don't really, this one I'll do a little bit offset too. So they're already starting to look like those abstract, I guess, roses or flowers there, and you can see the petals starting to show up there. So let's see, I can do a couple more down here. I'm gonna also use this pink in the purple. And we still have two more layers to go. So if you accidentally mess up or you're not happy with maybe one of your brush strokes, don't try, and you might be tempted to wipe it away with a rag or something else, but what you'll do is you'll actually just smear that paint away. The best thing to do if you mess up is to let it dry and then come back over it with a different color. You can come back and let's say you just absolutely hate what you did there on that purple flower. If you let that dry, you can just come back and paint over it with purple and start over. But if I were to try and wipe this away or lay more purple on it while it's still wet, I'm gonna just kind of get a gooey mess there. So everything's fixable with paint. You just need to wait for it to dry and then go over it after that. So this step is super easy. We're just starting to create those petals in our flowers. So I'm going to zoom you out now while I finish the rest of my purple and pinks. Another thing to think about when you're painting is sometimes as we're painting, we can be our own worst critics. Well, we can do that with anything, right? But a good idea is if you're just getting frustrated with these flowers or you feel like they're just not looking right, take a break and just step away from your painting. Walk out of the room and walk back in, and I can guarantee you they will look completely different than what they did when you're just staring at them nonstop for an amount of time. Because as we're working in our paintings, we tend to just focus on maybe that brush stroke that just wasn't right, or maybe you got too much paint in that area, or you just made a mistake. And when we do that, we have a hard time forgetting about it and it becomes our focus. Well, walking away from your painting and coming back to it really helps our eye forget about that piece when we see it all from a distance, because it's not just about that one flower right here, it's about the whole thing, and when you walk away, you see it a little bit differently. So I encourage you to take a break as you're working as well, and just walk away, grab a snack, grab a drink, go to the bathroom. And then when you come back, you've got some fresh eyes. You're not concentrating on that one brush stroke that was driving you nuts before, or that one piece of paint that you laid down that you didn't like. And looking at it as a whole will look a lot better. Alright, we're about halfway done with the pink and the purples. On this step, if, like I said, I didn't change my brush, I am still using the larger round, which I used at the very beginning of, of putting the flowers down. If you're feeling like your brush strokes are a little too thick, try and use a lighter pressure to get a thinner line. The more pressure we put down, the brushes will expand more and give you a thicker line. Or you can always switch to a smaller round brush. So whatever you feel comfortable, please use those tools that you have. If you just feel like you're not getting that thin of a brush stroke that you want. All right. So we've got our pinks and our purples, and I am going to wash my brush at this time and grab some yellow. I'm going to use yellow to highlight my orange flowers, my coral flowers, I should say. It's not really an orange. And I'm going to just throw that right on my palette. And I'm going to do the same thing. Now with this, the yellow again is really transparent, so you are I'm gonna try and zoom you in here. Oh. Okay. Whoop. So there is my orange flower, and you can see that the yellow is really transparent. You do see some of that coral color coming through, and that's okay. We're going to, again, add some more layers here, so it doesn't necessarily need to be a solid yellow when we're adding the highlight for this flower. So I just wanted to point that out to you because I didn't want you to keep trying to add more yellow, and then you'll have a really thick flower there. So let it be transparent. Let some of that coral color come through as you're adding your petals to your flowers. Okay. Hi, Kelly. Thanks for joining. And shoot, you've got to leave, but we'll catch you later, another time. All right, so at this time, I'm going to, on this one, I think I'm going to add yellow to the center of my other flowers. I didn't do that on my original, but I think it will just add just a pop of color to these other flowers. And since I have yellow on my brush, I'm just going to find those centers and just do a little dot of yellow in each of those. We'll see how that looks. Like I said, I've painted this porch sign about 8 times now, so, and every time I do it a little bit different. So just to give these other colors, not a lot of yellow, just a little dot of yellow, kind of where you have your center situated. And it might mix with some of that pink that's already there, and that's okay too. So there we go. I think that looks good. Okay. So now I'm going to go back and create my third layer on my flowers, and to do that I'm going to mix colors or mix my flower colors with a little bit of white. So I'm going to, let's see, I need a little bit more pink here. Grab a little more pink. I'm going to add a little bit of white next to it. I'm going to add a little bit of white next to my purple and a little bit of white next to my coral. Okay. So what I'm going to do for this next step is I'm going to create a light color of each of the base colors that I have. And I'm not going to mix it on my palette. You can, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to load my brush up with that main color, and then I'm going to add white to it. So if you can see, I have a mix of 2 different colors on there, so that when I'm laying these colors down, my brush is mixing them on my flower as I'm creating those C shapes and those or those C shapes or smiley faces or whatever you want to call them, half circles. And the reason that I do that is because I like the way that when I mix it on my wood, every brush stroke that I get is going to be different. It's not going to all be the same because of how much pink I have on my brush, how much white, and it really gives that cool effect on your flower so that no flower is the same either. So again, load your brush up with your main color, add white to it, and then we're going to just go over those colors and layer some additional shapes inside. So it's not a completely just a light pink, it's kind of a mix between a dark and a white. And let me zoom in here when I get to these other flowers and show you. Let's see, I'll zoom into these 3 flowers here on this side. So I'm going to add my third coat to that. Again, the dark pink and the white, not mixed, but on my brush, and I'm going to just lay that in my flower. So you can kind of see, well, let me see if I can get even closer. Might get a little blurry if I get too close. So what's happening here is I've got some dark with a blend of white there. So it does create a pink, but it also gives me both those colors at the same time, which really gives that flower dimension. So again, pink and white. And it's okay if you go over what you already have there. We're just adding another layer of dimension there. So I did the same thing with all 3 flowers, and they all turned out a little bit different because of how I mixed those colors with my brush. This one has a little bit more brighter, this one's a little more white. So I love how that looks with the flowers, how it creates the difference there. So I'm going to zoom you back out and finish. Center you back up. There we go. So where did I end up here? Here we go. And again, it's okay if you just brush right over some of that existing pink that we laid down. You don't have to go right in between those. You are going to overlap some of that in certain areas. There we go. So now we can move on to the next color. We're going to do the purples next. So we're going to mix purple and white together. Load your brush up with your main color. So I'm loading it up with a lot of purple. You can see that it's, you know, not enough that it's dripping off, but enough that you can get those colors mixed. And then I'm just going to dip it in the white. So don't forget about our live sale on Tuesday. We have so much stuff to show you guys. And also we are having door prizes every 15 minutes. So even if you join just to get in on some free stuff, we've got some great door prizes. And I believe we're gonna do the door prizes in a trivia fashion. So every 15 minutes we'll ask you a trivia question, and then I think whoever answers first, you know, will win the door prize. I think that's how we're gonna do it. And it won't be something where you're not allowed to use Google or whatever. It's just whoever can answer the question the fastest. Whoever we see, I think, is how we'll do that. Okay, we've got a couple more purples. There we go. And I'm gonna wash my brush. We'll go on to the orange, or the coral color. With white. You could also do white and yellow here too, if you wanted, instead of using a coral, to get a light white in this flower. So just to show you a little bit close up on my palette here, all I'm doing is doing these types of brush strokes on my flower. I know it's hard to see because I've got such a big area here that I can't zoom in too much, otherwise I get cut off, but that's all I'm doing is taking my brush and making that shape on my flower. So is anyone doing any painting of rooms or anything while we're at home, stay at home? Home improvement stuff? I've been wanting to paint this set of cabinets that I have, and I actually have the paint because I was going to do it I think last year sometime, and so I'm really thinking that's got to be on my to-do list here after the live sale. There we go. Okay, so then the last step is I am going to switch my brush to a smaller brush. I'm going to lift this up and try and get a little bit closer for you guys to see how that looks. So you can see some of my flowers have a little more white in them. Some are a little darker. Okay, so the next step is I am going to, like I said, switch to my smaller brush. And this is, I think, around six. Again, if you had like a brush that was flat, it's called a filbert like that, that would work. Around 4 would work. Just something smaller that you can get a little bit of a finer line inside your flowers. So this next step is I'm going to use just a pure white. So I'm not even going to use my plate here. I'm just going to use this. And I want to create some nice highlights in my flowers to just bring out some of those petal lines a little bit. So I'll zoom you in right to those one flowers again so you can see this first few that I do here. So I'll work on these right here, and I'm going to use that smaller brush and just add some 3 or 4 brush strokes in there just to highlight that, give it a little bit more highlight. And some of your flowers might already have that from when we just did the last step. So not maybe all flowers need it. But you can see instantly how that changed the flowers. It just gave some highlight to some of those petals and really made those stand out. So I only did 4 to 5 brush strokes in those flowers. I'll zoom you back out, and we will continue on with the rest of the flowers. These porch signs are fun because, well, I guess depending on your wood, we could paint the other side with more of a summer theme, or wait till fall and paint it with fall colors. So it's usable for a couple seasons, or just do the standard welcome on one side. Maybe we'll do that for another virtual party. Paint the back side. Scheduled this event for 2 hours thinking it would take me that long, and I forget that I'm not in a class setting and not being asked questions. I can probably get done with this a little faster. Oh, but it makes me sad not to be able to see everybody. Okay. I think I got them all. Stand back, take a look. All right. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is add greenery. So I'm going to get some dark green and some light green on my plate. And I am going to use the smaller round brush that I have. Getting paint everywhere. Okay. So I'm going to zoom you in again to this area here so I can show you just the strokes that I use to create the leaves and the grass. So what I did with my original is I added some leaves, but then I also added just some brush strokes to indicate grass. So to do grass, I'm going to start with that first. I'm going to actually use both colors on my brush. I've got the dark green and the light green. And the grass brush stroke is literally just a flick of your wrist. So you can see how on my paper or on my plate, I have a couple brush strokes there. It's just a flick of your wrist. So you're just going to do that. And just think about how you want your grass to come out of your flowers. I know that grass grows up, but in mine, I did have the grass coming out in all different angles. I didn't concern myself with, well, grass points straight up, so straight up on the board is where it should point. I think it looks good just to have it random, regardless of physics and gravity and all that. So so here I'm going to just start kind of where that flower ends there at the board, and I'm going to just flick my wrist out. So there's my grass. Grass is really fun, just because it's just that flick of the wrist, and it creates that grass blade for you so easily. When you're doing this, feel free to practice on a piece of paper. Sometimes it helps to, just grab a piece of paper and see how thick your blade is going to be, because obviously if you press hard and flick, when you press hard and flick, you're going to get a bigger blade of grass. And then if you just lightly flick, you get a little smaller blade of grass. So pressure is important when you're doing this. Just a nice light pressure will give you that perfect size, I think, for your porch sign. If you accidentally get this larger one, that's okay. We can come up and cover it with maybe a leaf or something, but just pull some flicks off of it and it looks just like a clump of grass anyway. So feel free to practice those on a separate sheet of paper if you want to, if you're nervous, but they are really easy, and it's I think you'll find very fun to do. Oh, let me zoom you back out. Okay. Hi, Jan. So we're just going to add some blades of grass around, not everywhere. We're going to add leaves to some areas. And I had a little glob of paint that fell off there. That's all right. Okay. We can come back and add more later if we need to, but I'm going to start adding some of my bigger leaves in. And then we can, if we still need some filler, we can add in some more grass. Okay, so for the leaves, I'm going to grab a piece of paper here. I'm going to just create that shape in areas. Some might be a little more thin, some might be a little pointier. And then what I'm going to do is, after I've created that, if I'm creating a darker leaf, I'll highlight with the lighter color. If I create a lighter leaf, you want to highlight with the darker color, or give detail to it, I should say. We're not really highlighting it with a darker color. So for this case, since it's a lighter colored leaf, I'm going to come in and just add some lines on the outside and then down the center to indicate that center vein of the leaf. And that really gives your leaves some detail. So outside and then down the center. And don't worry if your leaves aren't exactly a leaf shape, like, I don't even know if I can draw a leaf shape. Because of the way that we see leaves as well, they might be turned. So when you think about leaves, sometimes you think about the leaf that's just flat like this on a piece of paper, or a little clip art of a leaf. But in actuality, when we see leaves, sometimes they're turned a little bit to the right or the left, and so you're actually going to see leaves like in this case or this case where they're just a little bit lopsided. So don't get hung up on creating that perfect shape. Your leaves do need to look natural as well. Plus, this is an abstract drawing, so you don't want to have that perfect shape either. So I'm going to zoom you in to that area that we're working on, and I'll create a couple leaves here. And I want them to kind of stick out of the side of the wood there. So there's one. And then you can also create some leaves that sit right on top of your flowers if you want. You can create a grouping of leaves. So I've got two there, I put one there, and I'll put one here. And I think I'm going to add one down here with the grass. So since I did those leaves in a dark color, I'm going to go back, and I'm not washing my brush at all. I'm just letting those colors mix on my brush. I'm going to dip my brush in the light color and then create that outside line and then a center line. And remember, if you're putting your detail lines in and they're not looking right, or you accidentally make a mistake, just move on, let it dry, and you can come back in and make changes to it later. For instance, right there, I really don't like that center line, but if I were to try and go over it with a dark green and cover it up and start over now, I'm just going to get a mix of those two colors, and it's not going to look very good. So I'll let that dry and I can come back there and fix it. But to be totally honest, I'll probably forget about it by the time I get all the way around my board, and I won't notice it when I step away from it anyways. So, you know, be kind to yourself too when you're painting, and just move on to the next section and come back to it, and most likely it will look okay anyways. Okay, so we're gonna just add some leaves around here. Put some on top of your flowers, in between with the grasses, some small, some big. Overlap them together. Come back, and I did a few in the dark color, so I'm just coming back and adding some of the light green on top for a little detail. Just a nice light brush stroke there, so it just lays that color right on the leaf there. And I'll go back and start adding some more dark green. And then I'll go back and add my light color. So the greenery really helps fill it in and make it look full. It was looking kind of bare before. That's a big thing with painting too, is not just looking at each step as a finished product, and remembering that it will look completely different once everything gets added in. Because it was looking pretty sad without the greenery. So don't give up. Finish all the steps. And if you're still not liking it, remember to step away and take a break. Nice big leaves help fill it in. All right, what do you think? Much better, right? There we go. So at this point, you can step away and kind of see if any of the leaves need adjusting, adding some lighter color maybe. You can add adjustments to your flowers if some of your flowers you feel just need a little bit more color, or maybe they got too light, maybe you added too much white. You can go back and add just, you know, the solid color to them. If they need more white. So you're at the point to touch up. So I'm just going to add a couple light colored flower or leaves down here to the bottom. I just feel like it's just missing just a little bit down here. Okay. I think we're good. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some white dots, or not really berries, but like really tiny white flowers. And I'm not a gardener, so I'm not gonna pretend to know what kind of really tiny white flowers there are. I guess first thing that comes to mind is maybe baby's breath. Is that a really tiny white flower? Anyways, we're going to add some white dots to our areas, and I'm going to actually use the back of my brush for this step because it's easier to create just kind of that perfect little dot. But you're more than welcome to use the other side of your brush too. You might just get a bigger dot there. So I'm going to dip it in, and so I've got quite a bit of paint there. And here, let me zoom you in to that area there. And I'm going to just start randomly placing some dots. Not necessarily on my greenery, but I also want it to look like maybe that greenery is the stem for these little tiny flowers. And you can also just add them kind of close in to where that flower is. So I've created 3 there. I'll put a couple on my leaf itself. And it doesn't necessarily have to be on a piece of greenery that you've painted on. You can just randomly place it. I don't know if you can see right there. I didn't put it on any greenery because I wanted it to be random and look more natural there instead of forced on a stem. So we'll go through and add some dots. And some of them can land right on the flower. You know, it could be that the stem is sticking in from the side there and you can only just see the tiny flowers. Do small clumps of them. Do some where you have more dots in an area. Some where you maybe only have 3, some you only have 2 in areas. Oh, let me zoom you back out, sorry. Does anyone have plans for this afternoon? Painting, crafting, cleaning, watching a movie? Make sure I can see your guys' comments. All right. I think that's good. So the next step is putting on the letters. So if you have a kit and you have the wood letters, you might have already painted them while your background was dry, and then the next step will be to glue them down. I don't have any glue with me right this second, but you'll want to use a ruler and place them on in the center, and then the hello kind of goes at the top here at an angle. So when you're, I believe what I did with mine, when you're placing the letters, if you've got them, is I did 3 inches to start with from the bottom. So actually this will come down, wait, let me just go measure mine right here. 4 inches. So your G is going to start, whether you're painting or placing the wood letters, your G is going to start 4 inches down. So we're going to place that about right there. And then what I did next for the next letter is I laid my ruler between the two and then gave it a ruler's length between them. And I'll glue that one down. Well, before I glue, I got them all in place first to make sure that they were good this way, and then I glued them. So then I put it there, laid my ruler between, a ruler's length between the letters. We'll put our P there, and then the S. And then the hello was just kind of placed wherever I thought it looked good. And so once you've got them laid out vertically, then you want to kind of, I just eyeballed them to see where they would be best placed, you know, between the edges here. And I kind of used my ruler as a guide, but mostly I just stood back and eyeballed it. As long as they were, you know, about a ruler's length apart, it looks great. And then I glued them down. Now, if you don't have the letters, a couple different ways that you can add the outline so that you have something to paint inside. So you can take those PDFs that I have in the discussion of the event and just cut them out. If you print them on cardstock, that would work really well if you have it. If not, no big deal. Just cut them out. And instead of gluing the paper down, we're going to use a pencil and just trace around it. And then that will give us an area where we can paint the color that we want our letters to be. I used white, but you're more than welcome to use any color you want. You could use one of the flower colors, depending on how dark of a stained look you have here. If it's pretty light like this is, you could do the letters in that teal color. That would look really cool too. So just go around and cut your letters out. And then you're gonna lay, whoops, forgot a little bit here. So just like I started out with the wood letters, we're going to start that G 4 inches from the bottom. And then you're going to lay it out this way. It's about 3.5 inches on each side for the G. And then once you've got it in place, again, do all of your letters all the way up, lay them out Make sure that they're looking okay to you. And I'm gonna have to stand behind the camera to see this. Make sure it's not crooked. And then once you've got all your letters cut out, you've lined them up a ruler length apart. So you're gonna put your ruler here, then you're gonna put your N, and so on, and adjusted them so that they're centered this way. Take a pencil, and we're just going to outline that cut out letter. With a pencil. And a few of my dots aren't quite dry, but that's okay. So there we go, we've got the G. I don't know how well you can see that. I'll raise it up for you just a sec. So we've just traced that G on there. You're going to do that with all the rest of the letters. And then using your small brush, you can go in and fill that in. That's my big brush. So with this, you can also do different colors. You could do, you know, a purple, pink, orange, purple, pink, orange. You can really do whatever you want here. I'm just gonna paint this in white real quick. You can see how the painted letters are going to look. I won't keep you on and do them all. When you're painting your letters, you're probably going to want to do 2 light coats. So keep your first coat light, do you know, all the letters, then come back, and by the time you're done with all the letters, most likely the one that you started with will be dry already, and then you can put your second coat on. You could also do a white color, and then if you had a really a thinner brush even, you could outline it in the teal. So a lot of different options there for your lettering. My vicious guard dog's barking. He's just a little Yorkie and feels like he can protect everybody. There we go. And then you could go back, put a second coat on those, and then also maybe outline them in a color. And this one was a fast coat. I'd probably come back and sit down and do it. Standing and painting details like this is a little bit hard. Let's see, what else? I think that's it, guys. You're gonna get your husband to do the letters. Yeah, they take a little bit of just some patience and, you know, go slow. But it'll look great, and I think outlining them would be really cool too. One thing I do want to mention before I let you guys go, if you are gluing these letters on, really any type of glue will work. I used just a super glue, and it only required a few dots on the back, and it dried super fast, and they're holding up very well. I've had mine out for about a month now, so they've withstood some snow and wind and rain, and they're doing great. You can use wood glue if you have it, and you could also just use any old craft glue too. So just make sure that they dry completely before lifting it up. Otherwise you should be good to go. So that's all I have for you guys today. Let me just show you what I'm going to lift you up. So that's back there is the original. So you can see it is a little bit different, but each one is going to be different just because, well, I draw my flowers different every time. So original and new. So I hope you guys are able to paint this at some time. I only see a few people on right now, and that's okay. This will be saved to our Facebook page, so you can paint this whenever you have time, and you can pause it. You can do a section here, you can do the flowers, you can, and come back to it later. So that's the great thing about, I think, these live videos, and being able to come back to them and do it at your pace. And especially now that we're stuck at home, hopefully this gives you something to do. So if you paint it, I'd love to see your creation. Send me a picture, post a picture, tag us in it. We'd love to see your beautiful porch sign, or if you've done it on a different thing, I'd love to see that too. So thanks so much for joining us. If you have any questions, if you paint it later, feel free to message me. I'd love to help you out with that too. So anyways, have a great day, guys. Happy Sunday.